Hi friends, good evening, and this is Agnelo Rajesh here with my dear friend Leena Asher. And let me share what a fabulous Moonshot conversations we had last Sunday. The feedback from our corroboree was just so uplifting. And so today we have another exciting conversation. Do watch last week's episode as well, the one that we did with Rageshwari on mindfulness. In case you have missed it last Sunday or throughout the week, you didn't have a time to watch it. Do watch it in this during this week, and wait till till the end of this episode. We have an exciting surprise again for you for next Sunday. And don't forget to download the journal once this episode is done. Friends, do you know that there is a gold mine within you from which you can extract everything you need to live a life comfortably, happily, gloriously, stress-free, and a life of abundance? And that's the subconscious mind, and how you can manage it to make it the way you want it to function. So now for today's episode, the power of the subconscious mind, I would like to ask Leena, tell us about the importance of the subconscious mind and the role that this plays in our journey of life.
Hi, Agnelo Rajesh. So we see most images as a metaphor trying to explain the concept of the subconscious mind. We see it as an iceberg, right? And that's like a metaphor for the mind. So what you see above the water, floating above the water, is only 10% of the iceberg. Actually, most of the iceberg is not visible. It's all beneath the water. Hidden beneath the surface or deep beneath the surface. And this is a bit like our mind. The bit that we are aware of, which we could say in a way is visible to us, is the conscious brain, but that's only the 10%. The 10% you see above the water. The one that we're not aware of, which is much larger and has much more of an effect on us, is the subconscious, and that is deeply buried. And then the unconscious is even more deeply buried.
Oh, okay. So your subconscious mind is subjective. It does not think or reason independently. It merely obeys the commands it receives from your conscious mind. Just as your conscious mind can be thought of as the gardener planting seeds, your subconscious mind can be thought of as the garden or the fertile soil in which the seeds germinate and grow. So what do we rely more on, Leena? Is it our conscious, subconscious, or unconscious mind?
So think about driving a car. When you first started to learn how to drive a car, you had to do this very mindfully and very consciously with a lot of conscious attention. You had to think about the brake, the accelerator, the clutch, and especially, when we had the manual cars, the brake and accelerator, that balance we had to do. Then we were also very aware of the internal parts of the car, the indicator and the petrol gauge and all of that. What was in front of you in terms of cars, traffic, and also what was behind you. You kept looking in the rearview mirror, right? Consciously doing it. You had to have conscious awareness if you were going left, that you turn the left indicator on, and so on. And then I want you to think about, Agnelo Rajesh, what happens after a while? I mean, what happens when you drive now?
So, Leena, now when I drive absolutely automatically. I don't really think about driving at all. In fact, I don't have to think consciously about the brake, the accelerator, turning left or turning right. And actually, there are so many times for multiple activities that things just happen so automatically.
So this is an example of unconscious learning. So it starts off consciously, then it becomes automatic. And most learning is divided into four stages of learning. And that's the way we kind of deal with kids. We start off what is called unconscious incompetence. Means we don't even know, but we also don't know that we need to know. Like when kids thinking about walking, then they reach what is called conscious incompetence. Means we don't know, but we do know that we want to know.
Okay.
Right? So that's when we first start thinking about walking. Then we reach conscious competence, which is when toddlers start trying to walk, which is driving with a great deal of conscious attention. Then we reach what is called unconscious competence, which is driving without thinking about it at all. Consciously, I mean, we're just not even thinking about it. You can listen to the music, you can be talking on the phone, you can be driving, you can be turning left, turning right. So we rely on the conscious till something becomes a habit. And then when it becomes automated, is when we call that we've reached unconscious competence. When driving becomes automated, that's when you've reached unconscious competence.
Wow, that's a very interesting confusion, Leena. Thank you for that. In fact, if we think about the four stages: unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. Wow, that is so interesting. I will want to say that again so that I program my mind. So it is unconscious incompetence, it is conscious incompetence, it is conscious competence, and it is unconscious competence. So I see now how children learning this way all their life in all that they do, whether it is walking, whether it is talking, whether it is reading. So now you have talked about the 4 stages of learning, Lina, and the mind in terms of the conscious, subconscious, and the unconscious, which you say is deeply buried. The unconscious, which you say is deeply buried, Lina. So can you talk a little bit more about these 3 levels?
Before I do, I have to say, Rajesh, you're a brilliant student. I mean, I got jumbled saying renaming the 4 stages. You did it beautifully well. So the consciousness is what we are focused on consciously at a moment in time, right? When we say mindful meditation or focusing on the breath. So you're actively thinking about it. The subconscious is what is just beneath the surface, right? Like the driving. Like automatically driving the car is what we call subconscious. But then it is actually the unconscious, what is deeply buried. Those are the bits that can help us or sabotage us. But for the sake of simplicity for today's conversation, let's just talk about the conscious, and we'll club the subconscious and unconscious together.
Oh, okay. So your subconscious probably sees self-sabotage as self-preservation, a way to safeguard and defend yourself, even if it's no longer needed. So friends, some of our self-sabotage is so subtle that is easy to miss. We often fail to recognize how our actions are hurting ourselves. So Lina, are we going to term the subconscious and unconscious mind together? And how does the unconscious sabotage us?
So the way we perceive things, right? It depends on what's stored in our unconscious mind.
Okay.
We think we create thoughts and make decisions from our conscious, our rational mind, but 90% of our conscious mind is driven by the subconscious storage that we've got. So this as a concept is really significant to understand. Even before you start journaling and before you start making your visualization board, because however you set your goals, if the conscious and the subconscious goals don't match, it is the subconscious that will win every single time. Whether you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to, you think you want abundance. So if you've grown up thinking lack, you will hoard. So when you see people hoarding, and hoarding can show up in multiple ways. You could hoard fat on your body. You could, hoard clothes in your cupboard. You could hoard spare parts in your garage. How many people do we know that actually don't need what's in their house, but kind of just hoard it anyway? So if you so example, if you grow up with the fear of failure, you could fear actually taking any actions that have any chance of failure. So if you've grown up hearing that money is the root of all evil, then financial abundance will evade you no matter how much your conscious mind believes it wants to be rich.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let me connect this to what Rageshwari spoke about. I recall her saying that she had to actually talk to her father about being okay with making money and having it as a goal. Now, Lina, who in this world would want to have any aversion to making money?
So I had to consciously become aware of it as well. In fact, when an Australian consultant came to examine the business, he said the business's greatest weakness or challenge is that the founder doesn't have a money mindset.
Okay.
Now that's not necessarily. I have a wealth mindset, just not a money mindset. So anyway, it's funny how our subconscious works. And remember what we spoke about in the last Moonshot conversation. Because when we are young, we're in a mind state where everything we see and everything that we hear gets recorded without any filters. Right? The children exist in a highly programmable theta state.
Okay.
And record vast amounts of information that they will need to survive in their environment. But the problem is they do not have the capacity to consciously evaluate the information that's being downloaded. Right? So every childhood memory, everything you say to kids and everything that kids experience sits in their subconscious and has an effect on their adult life. So from birth to the age of 6, we function almost entirely from our subconscious minds. So that is, we really have no ability to judge what's going on around us. So everything we hear, as I said, and everything we experience, every interchange with others, absolutely everything lands in our subconscious minds, just like a complete download. An absolute truth. So in the journal, we've actually written the importance of not labeling kids, because whatever kids hear at this stage or experience becomes an absolute truth for them.
Oh, wow. So, Lina, what happens to all this recording and how does this affect how we could see money? Like how Rageshwari's dad experienced that in that conversation with Rageshwari. I mean, wouldn't everyone in this world wish for financial abundance? That's a normal thought, actually.
That's what we think, right? Your conscious mind may feel that you wish for abundance, but if your subconscious, for any reason, while growing up, if it believes that financial abundance could be harmful to you, and it'll thwart your ability to get financial abundance. So what we all have to remember is that we all have a biological imperative to survive. That's why we've got a negative bias in our brains that we've spoken about. So whether we're functioning from our conscious brains or not, we're actually wired to respond to anything that threatens us or we believe is threatening us, and whatever increases our chances of survival.
So how could an infant or child develop an understanding that making money or being financially well off could be harmful for survival? How could he develop that understanding?
So this could happen in a few ways, and I'll just give you a couple of examples. One example is the one, I said to you earlier that if your parents genuinely believe that money is the root of greed, corruption, and evil, and they kind of communicated this to you in one way or another through their words or their actions, then you would, through your subconscious, be averse to making money, right? Or say your parents constantly had fights about money, constantly had conflicts about money. And then as a child, you kind of heard this and experienced this. Your subconscious could kind of download that money causes conflict. Or say your parents planted thoughts of scarcity in your brain. Then this is how your subconscious kind of got wired and stayed wired.
That's interesting, Lina. Got wired and stayed wired. That's a very interesting anecdote.
It's absolutely. And, I always give this example. It's the simplest example for anyone to understand this. You have a circus elephant. And I'm using that as a story to describe the power of the subconscious mind. An adult elephant in a circus could so easily break away from the rope that ties it to like a wooden peg that's in the ground. But, we don't think about it enough. But why doesn't it? It does not, because when it was young and it tried to pull away from being tied, it couldn't. And now as an elephant, it has come to believe that it is powerless. We call this learned helplessness, that it's powerless to break away from what holds it in place, what keeps it tied down. So after a while, just like the elephant, your subconscious programming can be self-limiting and self-sabotage. So our subconscious programming is the thing that creates habits. So it's not the rope or the stake that keeps the elephant imprisoned, but it's the habit. So this is what happens to us humans as well. So we actually think less than we think we think. We think we think about everything, but we think less about what we think we think. I know that's a little complicated because most of our decisions are automatic. Most of our actions are automatic behaviors driven by our programming. So whatever we hear or experience as children become absolute truths.
Absolutely. I agree with this. I agree to the fact that it is not the rope or the stake that keeps the elephant imprisoned, but the habit. And this does happen to humans as well. We have experienced it in our life. So, Lina, our subconscious programming creates habits like how you just discussed. Our subconscious creates our patterns and our beliefs about things like money. That is so interesting. What are some of the limiting patterns that we could form as children?
So that's a great question, Agnella Rajesh. And, through this, the questions, the interviews that I'm doing for Corroboree, my God, I come across some fabulous insights.
Yes.
So, and I wish I knew all of these when I was bringing up my son. So the patterns I'm explaining right now are ones that I picked up in an interview with a wonderful woman called Shelley Lefko. And it'll be available on the Corroboree platform as soon as it's ready. I think in about another 70 days. So before I go through these patterns, I want everyone watching to understand that if we have these patterns formed by our parents, or we have parented for any of these patterns ourselves, that none of these are intentional.
Got it, Lina. So we will be mindful in our awareness that none of this was intentional, but also going by what you have been saying so far, that we should also be aware that we can repattern any patterns that are not serving us well.
Absolutely. So all patterns or limiting beliefs can be reversed. So
Okay.
I'm going to go through the 5 most common beliefs that I learned from Shelley Lefkoe that stop us from living a happy and a successful life. So belief number 1, I am not good enough.
Okay.
Belief number 2, I am powerless.
Okay.
Belief number 3, I am not important. Belief
Mm-hmm.
number 4, what makes me good enough is achieving. And belief number 5, what makes me good enough is having others think well of me.
Oh, excellent. Interesting beliefs. And yes, they will define how you will take actions and decisions in life. So, before we address the subject of repatterning ourselves, what are some of the things we can be mindful of as we parent our children, Lena?
So, if you have realistic expectations of your children and
Mm.
you validate their feelings without criticizing them,
Okay.
that's very important to do. If they feel free to make mistakes, that
Mm-hmm.
is very important to do. That will mean that they will not develop the feelings of self-doubt, that I am
Mm-hmm.
not good enough feeling. If you give
Mm-hmm.
your children choices and allow your children to have some power to control their circumstances, they will
Mm-hmm.
not develop the feeling that they are powerless.
Just like the elephant, Lena.
Yeah, just like the elephant. So those that feel powerless develop like a victim mentality, and we've all met victims, right? So we need to
Absolutely.
be fully present for our kids when they need us.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen in a restaurant a kid telling his mother all about some scientist, some rocket thing, and the mother is not putting down her screen. So when your children are talking to you, please put down your screens and listen mindfully, so
Mm-hmm.
that when you do this, they will feel important and not develop the feeling, that they're not important. And that's
Mm-hmm.
obviously what we all want for our kids, right? We want them to feel that we take them seriously and
Mm-hmm.
that we will make space for them when they need space. The fourth one is really obvious. What makes me good enough is achieving. These are the children who grow up into workaholic adults. Make sure your kids know that they matter and it's not their grades and achievements that matter. And the
Okay.
last one is, let them know that they're okay regardless of what anyone else, including a teacher, an aunt, a grandparent, anyone thinks of them. If we can
Okay.
do this for our children, then they will live authentically, firstly, with
Mm-hmm.
an inner scorecard rather than an
Got it.
outer scorecard, right?
Okay.
They're,
Okay.
and if they do this, they're much more likely to be happy and successful.
Wow. So I'm not good enough. I'm powerless. I'm not important. What makes me good enough is achieving. What makes me good enough is having others think well of me. Wow. That is so well explained, Lina. Actually, these are beliefs with which we have lived with. Understanding the belief system is really so important, Lina. So as parents, we should remain vigilant about how our kids might perceive events that as adults we consider perfectly harmless. I'm sure this is very interesting and important to know, Lina.
So wherever possible, we should be mindful.
Okay.
Today we're aware of so much more about neuroscience, about neurobiology than our parents even, had thought possible.
Okay. So what impacts life and the way we live in is our downloads which keep happening and they get settled in our subconscious mind. The quality of our life then depends on the patterns formed inside our subconscious mind. So Lina, I read one of your posts on Instagram about fairy tales. Can you talk about how the unconscious mind of our children can be affected by stories?
So unbelievable to think about that, right? So we never know how stories will impact the unconscious mind of our children. So,
Mm-hmm.
5 kids could read Pollyanna, but it gave me a propensity for optimism, right? So
Okay.
just as Pollyanna gave me unconsciously a propensity for optimism,
Mm-hmm.
fairy tale can also unconsciously affect a child that we're reading
Okay.
the story to. A
Mm-hmm.
little girl who has, read a diet of fairy tales where a prince is always rescuing her, she can grow up to believe she deserves to find a prince who will
Mm-hmm.
take care of her. So, she could abdicate her power around money. She could abdicate her power around, taking decisions. Or as I described in my post,
Mm-hmm.
that this child could end up thinking that all happy endings end up in the culmination of marriage, and that's the ultimate goal. So
Mm-hmm.
this little girl may unconsciously push away any sort of professional or social success.
And what about the effect on boys, Lina?
So boys may also unconsciously believe that they have to be this big white knight, charge up on their white horse and save, rescue, provide. They may also seek damsels in distress,
Mm-hmm.
projects to fix, or become workaholics, and then they can grow up feeling that it's their job to provide everything that is needed. So if we tell boys, when they fall down and cry, man up, then we're setting them up for suppressing their feelings. And we remember how important it is to access our feelings, right? So boys and girls can be equally affected by the stories that they read.
So, Lina, many people only see the conscious mind and are not aware about the benefits of connecting it to the subconscious mind. They believe that the way to accomplish more is to cram more into the conscious mind and make it work harder. But this is often very counterproductive. And by now, we know the subconscious mind is more powerful than the conscious mind, just like how you discussed some time back. If the desires of the conscious mind are in constant conflict with those with the subconscious mind, it is the subconscious programming that will win, Lina. So what happens then?
Absolutely. So it's natural. So if your subconscious programming is going to win, it's the one that's going to affect every area of a child's life into their adulthood. So if as a child you're repeatedly told, or you receive signals in some way that you were worthless, then these messages have got programmed in your subconscious. And this will undermine your best conscious efforts to change your life and succeed in adulthood. So even if your conscious mind decides it wants to succeed, your unconscious won't let it. So in simple words, if our subconscious brain believes we don't deserve success or love or happiness, we will keep sabotaging our conscious efforts to achieve any of these. I remember walking through Billabong High, Malad, one day, and I actually asked the principal to take down a signboard because it said, "You can only succeed if you really work hard." I said, "Sweetheart, you're programming the subconscious mind of our kids with this message." So given this understanding of the constant download into our subconscious brain, imagine the consequences of hearing someone say, "You are stupid," or "You can't do anything right." And there's a video that you must watch in the journal. We program all our verbal and non-verbal communication and acquire the perception of ourselves, positive and negative, from all this programming.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. We program all our verbal and non-verbal communication and acquire the perception of self as positive or negative. That's so well said, Lina. So this would be an important thing to bring to the attention of not only parents, but teachers also, right, Lina?
Absolutely. So in my training of leaders, in my centers, especially the preschool centers, I would ask leaders to train their teachers to be mindful about labeling children in their care. In fact, I would ask them to be so careful, especially the preschool, that if a kid puts up his hand to answer something and answers incorrectly, to scaffold it to the correct answer. Never say, "No, you're wrong." Say, "Hey, that's an interesting thought, and let me add on to it." So, if we tell a parent in front of a child, your child is shy or messy or distracting as a teacher, right? You're sort of setting the subconscious in a way that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the more you say your child is shy or messy or distracting, the more shy, messy, and distracting your child will actually become. So if we as teachers are speaking to parents about their kids, then it needs to be done in a sensitive, empowering, effective way. So we've given ways to reframe in the journal. So instead of saying to your child distracts everyone in class and doesn't do any work, right? Just say that. You can actually say your child has so much energy that at times he has trouble concentrating. If a parent tells me my child is hyperactive, I say, you mean to say your child is very active, and that's normal for kids, and that's a great way to be. So let's explore ways of channeling his energy constructively, instead of saying he's distracted. Or if you want to say, or if your mind wants to say your child does not talk to anyone and is shy, rephrase this, kind of to say your child is very comfortable in her own space and likes to be left alone. We could probably try to involve her in some group games at school and some play dates at home, etc., etc. So we have to learn to reframe, to rephrase what we're saying in a way that's really consciously mindful, so we're not programming the subconscious of our children.
Absolutely. This is so true, Lina. We need to be watchful of our words. They program the subconscious mind. And depending on the words and statements, the impact it is in the proportion of the statements and the words that they use all the time. So parents and teachers need to be sensitive about labels and how they can speak about a child in the child's presence.
Yes. And, none of us mean harm, right? Especially if we're teachers. And even if we're mothers or fathers, we don't actually mean harm. But we don't understand that negative labels can have profound harmful experiences for the kids. And create profound harmful outcomes. So it is a child who is labeled as fat who can become an anorexic adult, right? And they've proven this. So when a person who's really thin with anorexia looks in the mirror, what they actually see is not an accurate reflection. We see that person is anorexic, but their subconscious sees them as fat, even if they're painfully thin. So how do we go from a cherubic cute toddler who has a few traumatic experiences to a damaged adult?
Okay.
So there's a video in your journal that I really want all of you to watch. There's two, but and both are equally powerful. But it shows you how in just a few minutes how this downloading of our beliefs in our labels occurs in our subconscious brain.
Fantastic. So there are moments in life when something happens. We make up a story about the why and the what, and we start to live as if that story was true because we believe they're keeping us safe. The truth is, these stories are actually stopping you from getting the big results that you're looking for. So when I think of this, I again think of the elephant. And it is that simple to install limiting beliefs, just like how the elephant feels, right, Lena?
Yeah, so teachers and parents need to think how inadvertently we may be instilling limiting beliefs in our kids, right?
Yes.
Remember the story I told you about Drish and the red ink highlighting errors. What were we programming him for? So think of kids who consistently score poorly on tests. What is true for the elephant is true for our kids in our classrooms, kids in our homes. Children who grow up believing they can't actually won't.
Absolutely. Nearly all limiting beliefs, Lena, such as I'm not good enough, or I'll never succeed, or I'm not lovable, are created in our early childhood. The effects of such self-defeating beliefs can have a long-term effect on our children. So, Lena, what are some of the things we could do?
So first step is to focus on what each child in our care can do, right?
Okay.
What they can do is what we will focus on because success is motivating and failure is not. As a teacher in Australia, I actually gave a child an A who should have got maybe a C or a D. And you should have seen how he started, scoring goals after that. So success is motivating, failure is not. So keep the focus on what each child can do rather than what they can't. Unfortunately, even most of our schools, our focus goes on educating the conscious brain when it is actually the subconscious that needs most of our attention.
Absolutely.
Subvert the subconscious. If we can teach our children to control their self-talk, we are setting them up on the right path. Go back to Operation Optimism. Positive self-talk leads to positive self-outlook, and optimistic one. Optimists have a stronger immune system. Optimists are overall more successful. Talent is overrated if it is not matched by optimism.
Lovely. So in our Moonshot conversations with Rageshwari, you spoke about Osama bin Laden and Hitler. So what are some of the more dangerous outcomes of subconscious programming that children receive at a very young age?
So there's a Dr. Stephen Egger. He's the associate professor of criminology and it's fascinating subject. And he's at the University of Houston. So he was the first one to actually write a dissertation on serial murders. Murderers. And during his interviews of serial murderers, he says that most criminals cite a childhood filled with some form of abuse.
Yes.
So Hitler actually had an emotionally harsh father, and he was beaten up a lot as a kid. His father had a terrible temper. Hitler also, little known that he lost 4 out of his 5 siblings and became very withdrawn when his youngest brother died. So we don't know what sort of effect this has had on him. So many people who are in psychological profiling, criminal profiling, actually believe that the terror of the Third Reich was cultivated in his home in his childhood. Osama was one of 50 kids. Imagine being one of 50 children. What kind of attention-seeking behavior would you start thinking about, So it's thought that this is where his need for attention and significance was born. So a profiling study on him finds that bin Laden actually neither fits the profile of the highly conscientious, close-minded, religious fundamentalist, nor that of a religious martyr who combines those qualities of devout, self-sacrificing sort of features. Rather, it suggests that, bin Laden was adept at exploiting Islamic fundamentalism in the service of his own need for attention and personal dreams of glory. So most serial killers have had very painful childhoods. There's one on Netflix, and it's about Edmund Kemper, and His parents divorced. He was left with an alcoholic mother who blamed him for the divorce. She was overly critical of him and forced him to live in the basement of the house.
Mm-hmm.
He actually shot his grandfather when he was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he took the lives of 10 women as an adult. And I want you to think about this deeply, everyone. When we think about improving IQ,
Absolutely.
his genius IQ starts at 140. Edmund had an IQ of 145.
Oh.
He had a genius IQ. Einstein had an IQ of 160.
Okay.
The Unabomber had an IQ of 167.
Oh.
The Unabomber's IQ was above that of Einstein's. So there are so many stories like the Unabomber and stories like Edmund. So what I want us to focus on is imagine how many Einsteins we have falling between the cracks because, these people didn't have mothers like Einstein had.
So we could actually be losing so many Einsteins, Lena, in this world based on their early programming. In fact, I know from Einstein's stories that even if teachers and the school failed Einstein, his mom made him feel very good enough. In fact, she made him feel powerful and she made him feel very important. Actually, she believed in him even though he did not conventionally achieve. And by taking him away from the school, she actually sort of told him, that how others saw him was absolutely not important at all.
Exactly. So it's important that we are mindful as parents, right? Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Children before the age of 7 in their theta state do not have a direct construct of themselves. They create their construct of themselves based on what they hear and experience. Hitler, Obama, and Edmund, they're extreme cases of unmindful caring that led to so much death and destruction in the world. So for most humans, a painful childhood may just lead to internal pain and self-limiting, beliefs and self-sabotaging beliefs.
So my question to you, Lena, is what can we do to repattern the subconscious from self-limiting beliefs?
So we've got to kind of run out of time today. What I want everyone to do is to keep journaling and practicing visualizations, as both of these definitely will help you. Using the power of self-hypnosis or theta brain entrainment, you can actually access your unconscious mind for the purpose of facilitating core healing and change. Therefore, theta brainwave entrainment is a great resource for both hypnotherapists as well as those using self-hypnosis.
Yes.
I use brainwave entrainment myself. So next week, we have another special guest, as you announced. You took the words right out of my mouth. So well known for her acting prowess and her beauty, less known for her deep spiritual intelligence and constant study of the power of the mind and study of natural healing is my dear friend and actress Simone Singh. See, she's going to join us next Sunday to understand the 5 brainwave frequencies and to discuss ways in which we can, through practice, develop the ability to consciously access them to heal trauma and reprogram subconsciously held beliefs that may be holding us back.
Oh, wow. So friends, we will explore accessing the theta brain state on the next Sunday. And this should be an engaging and a very exciting conversation. So I look forward, along with Lena, I look forward to seeing all of you the next Sunday at 5 p.m. sharp. Simon, Lena, and I together in a conversation about brainwave frequencies and how, through practice, we can develop the ability to consciously access them. Friends, please keep commenting on the shows that you're watching. These are all priceless shows. The knowledge and the content that has been put together by Lena is just fabulous. This is her work of more than 40,000 hours in her lifetime of her being an educator for the last 27 years. And everybody is benefiting immensely. We get so many calls and messages thanking us for these shows. So please don't miss out on the shows. But what is more important is, after you see the shows, it is very important for you to download the journal and do it as a family, which will empower you and definitely reprogram not only your subconscious mind, but make you very optimistic in life, create a very resilient mindset in you, and allow you to develop as a good parent and allow your children to become Einsteins of the world for tomorrow. Please be with us. Every comment that you make and every question that you ask will be answered and replied back by Lena herself. So be connected with us, and we will see you again on the coming Sunday at 5 p.m. sharp with Lena Asher, Simon, and myself. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.
Agnel Rajesh, I'd just like to say one thing.
Yes.
Because I'd like you to stop. It doesn't. We do not want every child to become an Einstein of the world. We want every child to be authentically who that child was born to be. And while I may not have a money mindset, I've got a wealth mindset, and that's why I'm here. I'm here to share whatever wealth we have with our corroboree. So see you next Sunday at 5 o'clock.
Awesome. Look forward to watching the show with Leena and me on the show and interacting with you through your live comments during the show. Thank you so much.